Welcome to the Father Figure Formula. Create moments that matter.
Okay, today we have a very special guest here, and I always appreciate having these conversations with obviously fathers, in this being the Father Figure Formula Fireside Chat. But for a gentleman who already has somewhat of an infrastructure set up, I could say, on social and has these conversations, probably had way more conversations maybe than I have. But the point of this is to bring on Mr. Pat Barber here from the Fathers Guild. I will leave the introduction to yourself, sir, but because I think that wouldn't do it justice if I was to introduce you. But once we get a little bit of an intro on your end here, we'll take a couple minutes to do that, and we'll jump into some questions. Okay?
Sure. My name is Pat Barber. I run an account, and the way you found me was the Fathers Guild. Essentially, the Fathers Guild is my personal thoughts on fatherhood. I have 4 sons. I live in the mountains of Santa Cruz, California. I've got an amazing wife. My kids are ages from 13 down to 3. I come from a background of fitness and coaching, and the type of fitness and coaching that I've done in my life is CrossFit, and a lot of CrossFit is centered around examining what you're doing very closely and always changing what you're doing so that way you achieve the best results. And that mindset has really led me to do that with many things in my life. Be very reflective by nature, try to accept responsibility by nature, try to examine what I'm doing and find the best version of it. And inevitably I brought that into fatherhood. And that's what I started the Fathers Guild about, is I started this channel as just to examine fatherhood closer, think deeply about it, be intentional with it, try to be more present, and just take the most amount of joy that I could from it. And while being a good dad, you know? And when I looked at the social space, it felt like there was very extreme presentations of fatherhood and manhood and masculinity. And it was either like rah man, just we're the dominant lone wolf, on that one side. And then on the other side, it was like, be more like a woman, like be really effeminate. And I was like, there's a big middle ground, man. Like there's a lot in the middle of just like common sense. And, you know, some things over here are good and some things over here are good. And I kind of wanted to speak to that. So again, started the Fathers Guild, and it grew, and it was kind of wild. I just post my thoughts on fatherhood. It's not a business by any means. I just talk about fatherhood and want to help men, and have I guess struck a chord with people.
Yeah, and I think one aspect that was maybe really drawn to the Fathers Guild channel was I think the authenticity, right? And I think the real organic nature of how you present some of your concepts and just conversations. I think even one of them that I saw of somebody who made a comment that was maybe a little spicy on one of your posts. And you're like, I would like to introduce a conversation with this person. Please, let's chat about it. And I feel like that's a very organic thing to say, opposed to, you know, maybe firing back, you know, shots fired, or maybe digging into them just on your own channel without letting them have that conversation or defend themselves. So I thought it was a very natural way for you to present the channel and some of these conversations, which I was really drawn to.
I appreciate that. I think authenticity is definitely a value of mine. And I've always appreciated that in life. But I think as a man, as I've grown, coming in congruence with what I say and what I do and how I think, like, I don't ever want there to be this like side of me that people don't understand or don't know. So being understood is important to me. And I think that when I present stuff in a social space, I struggle with people who are clearly inauthentic, who are like clearly doing this as like not as a business, but like as an act, you know, like, and there's a performance to all of it. You know, when you're posting on social media, like it's fabricated by nature. You're looking at a camera and you're doing it, but there's people who are clearly doing it just to get a rise or just to play the game or I don't know. There's a few fatherhood channels even that like they film like really cinematic and it's overly drama and it's blah, blah. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, I guess you can do whatever you want. But for me, I just like to say what's on my mind, and I like to be honest with it, and I feel comfortable doing so. So I appreciate that you see that in my content.
Mm-hmm. Now, Pat, you thrive in both CrossFit and fatherhood. So when did it kind of hit you that these worlds like needed 2 totally different approaches or different versions of you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if that actually struck me as something specific or more just, I had my son when I was youngish, not young. I was immature. Let me rephrase that. Age-wise, I wasn't young. I was 27 years old, which is a baby to me now, but I was immature when I had my son. And at the time I was a competitor in CrossFit. So my whole life was dominating other human beings. That was my goal. And the sport of CrossFit is very different than the training methodology of CrossFit. It's like the difference between the Tour de France and bike riding, like they're very different things. And there's an unhealthy aspect to the competition side of it, which is both psychological and physiological, where you're looking to just dominate your fellow man. And everything I put into that was like me. Like it's all about me. Like I need to spend as much time as I can devoting myself to beating myself into the ground so that I can dominate on the field. I can be as strong as I can. I can be as fast as I can. I can be as fit as I can. And when I had my son, very rapidly, I mean, you have kids, you get slapped in the face with the fact that it's not all about you anymore. And this version of you where it's all about you needs to learn its place, because there is a rude awakening that happens when you try to make your life all about you, when you now have the responsibility of a baby, and a relationship and those things. So I think that moment, and it wasn't a moment, it was like a 3-year chunk of time of me trying to fight who I was versus who I was now. And letting go of that sense of self and that identity was what really, I think, allowed me to become the father that I needed to be. And at first it was really terrible, but now it's like, oh my God, this is the meaning. Like this, I'm so much more at peace. Like these things like, oh, I need to dominate my fellow man. I don't have that. I mean, I don't have that as like, it's not necessary. Like, do I feel like there's a need to work really hard and do all these things? Sure. But do I need to just crap on the people around me? No, I don't, because I'm a grown up now, like I recognize the real importance of things. And I don't know if you can recognize that commitment to others without being a father in that way. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased because I am a father, but I think that's for a lot of men, that's the time that's difficult, and it's so important for us to move on to it.
Yeah, one of your posts, I think you had mentioned that once you can kind of just give into the fact you're going to be uncomfortable, that's, I think, where the real, presence and enjoyment and those small things. Like I personally feel like the smallest moments are the most rewarding, because everybody talks about these kind of big moments, but it's the small ones you don't think about that you're like, whoa, those really have a mark. And some of them might be when you're really uncomfortable. So I think that was a really interesting way to put it. And I think a lot of people need to, fathers obviously need to kind of grasp that not everything is going to be, puppy dogs and rainbows. The things is going to be difficult to make you uncomfortable.
Totally. But in the best of ways. Like they make you uncomfortable because they're confronting a lot of your own fragility, there's things that are important and there's things that are not important. And what you try to do is you try to mitigate your emotional reaction to things that are unimportant. And I think that's where fatherhood becomes more or less angsty, is if you can let go of the things that are unimportant, which are the vast majority of them, like whether they spilled something on the couch or they didn't listen the first time or whatever it might be. If you can start to let go of those things and realize their place, they become easy to let go of. And then you can really focus on the bigger things, like, are they a good person? Do they enjoy life? Are they curious? Are they willing to question authority? And like you said, when you can let go of those little things that they do all the time that are annoying as hell, but don't matter, that you can start to find so much joy in the simplest things, because it's not the big teaching lessons that are important. It's the little things, like watching them, like the older son take care of the younger son, or like watching your kid realize that their mom doesn't have a fork, and then like walks in and grabs a fork and then brings it out and sets it next to her. And like, these are things that happen very organically if like this is the way you live your life. But when you start paying attention, it's like you said, it's the most magical, satisfying thing. And I can only imagine that, like, I'm not going to be on my deathbed being like, I missed the small things, you know, like, that's like, I mean, it's clear that those are people's biggest regrets. So like, I'm not going to be there. I don't want to be there. I'm going to pay attention now. I don't want to be there. Yeah.
I also think that, I mean, I've had a few conversations with some other fathers who say like embracing that kind of chaos, right? And a lot of times the chaos is what brings the level of discomfort. So I think like when we're kind of talking about maybe something that like shook you, was there a moment in fatherhood that kind of shook you and kind of made you rethink everything?
I mean, there's been a number of moments that have shook me, but I think some of the bigger ones are accidentally catching myself on camera responding, right? So maybe I'm filming for something else, and then I do something, or my son comes in and makes a mess or whatever it is, and I respond. Because I've filmed for a lot of my work, for my fitness stuff and things like that. Not necessarily content for the internet, for like social, but behind paywalls and stuff.
Yeah.
And accidentally catching what I sound like, and then listening to that after the fact was just very confronting, because I didn't realize what I sounded like. I didn't realize how harsh that really was and how overblown some of those responses were. Because when I'm doing them in the moment, they feel appropriate. And they feel appropriate because I'm feeling agitated and I think I'm being level-headed, but I'm not. I'm being agitated, level-headed, which is super aggressive to a 5-year-old, you know? So I think some of those moments, recognizing that I wasn't the chill dude that I thought I was, were very, very confronting and very, very important, and really shook my world to the point where I'm like, I need to be different, and really spurred off a lot of reflection and continued challenges around basically being a better man. And it caused me to want to examine a lot of other aspects of my life that I thought I was great in, but upon closer look, not as great in. So I would say that catching myself on camera like that was definitely one of the more confronting moments.
The idea of looking in the mirror, like self-assessment, is so important. But the fact that you actually saw yourself on camera, and that's really interesting to me. I think not only can you potentially use that to, you know, self-reflect, but also I think let's maybe like dig into that a little bit, because as you mentioned, that's kind of like in your workplace or how you were maybe trained. If it was CrossFit or personal training, there's obviously a lot of, you know, I guess you could say personal testosterone involved. So how did that maybe kind of translate to moving forward from an emotional discipline standpoint at home?
Which part of it?
When understanding at that point that you need to potentially approach yourself a little bit differently around, say, your child.
Oh, how I ended up utilizing that and going through that was essentially turning it into a challenge for myself. And this is actually what made the Fathers Guild originally go viral. Was I challenged myself to not yell for a month. And I'm not like a yelling guy. Like I don't communicate generally through yelling, but when I do go there, it is scary. I do have an intensity that when you see it on camera, you're like, that's intense, you know, like, and there's clearly anger deep inside. And I think anger is a pretty natural emotion, but it just needs to be utilized appropriately. And I wasn't using it how I wanted to. So I challenged myself to not yell for a month. And every time I yelled, I would have to give my kid I yelled at $5. So like in the moment, they could be like, you just yelled. And then I'd have to give them $5, right? And I realized that, well, I didn't quite realize that my wife had asked me, like if I knew that the kids were afraid of me and that I was yelling a bit. And I was like, no. So I interviewed them each individually, and I don't know if you've seen this video, and I just basically said like, hey, if you could change one thing about me, what would it be? And my kids are really honest, and we have great, a loving relationship and all these other things. But, and they each said, yelling, you're yelling. And I had them like individually, and they didn't know what the other one said. And I was like, damn, like
There's a pattern.
I was like, there's a pattern here. And I wasn't quite expecting to be as clear like that. I've asked him other questions before, like, what do you think my relationship to my phone is? Or what do you think the most important thing to me is? And I never get concrete answers, but that was just so like bang, bang, bang yelling, that I made that challenge. And I had a lot of people appreciate that conversation. And I had a lot of people tell me I was terrible for even having that conversation, but from both sides, which I loved. I had people telling me it was way too harsh and my kids are like gonna be beat to the ground or whatever it is. And I probably beat them behind closed doors, all the way to like, anytime I yell at them, like if I don't yell at them, then I'm going to change their sexuality and turn them trans. And I'm like, whoa, dude, like, what is this spectrum that love, like hate that I'm getting? And I get some wild stuff from posting the things that I post. Yeah. But anyway, I put that out there and I did this challenge, and it was really difficult. But what it made me realize was that there wasn't a gap between action or like an incident and a response. There was no space. And what I had to do was create space, and that allowed me to create space to where I can be like, oh, I'm going to make a different decision. Cause like my brain for some reason was like $5, and not that I care about $5, but it was just something different to like, just throw a little wrench into the works of my mind's patterns to be like, oh, hold up. And I've repeated it a couple of times now, but I am a fraction of the intensity and yeller that I was before. And that was about 3 years ago that I did that. But yeah, I think that's how I implemented it, is upon realizing that I had this intensity, that I wasn't coming across how I wanted to, and I was being perceived that way. I took that into my relationship. I took that into my house. I don't yell at my wife, but like with my kids, and did that challenge. And now I yell less, and it provides for a better relationship. And when I do yell, it's more impactful because it's very intentional. It's like,
it doesn't happen often.
We've gone to these places and these steps in between. And I think that I'm a big fan of that whole least force necessary sort of conversation, where it's like you want to have the change with the kid, but use the least force necessary to have that change happen or to get the action to happen. And each kid's and situation is gonna need a different level of force. But for me, I was like, there's a lot of steps in between that I was skipping. It was like, ask once, yell. And it's like, well, there's like 7 other things in between. Ask again, hand on shoulder, look in the eyes, move around to front, whisper it to them. Like there's so many other things that could potentially be the case before I get to there. So now I have it as a tool. It's a much more intentional tool. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but that's how I've brought that into my actual life, is that realization.
Yeah. And understanding, I think, maybe not necessarily, well, you could kind of see it as a negative pattern, but understanding that pattern to replace it with a positive one, I think, is how you create some of those habits, right? So that's awesome. So your kids kind of being, from toddler, I guess, to kind of young adult almost, right? So which stages kind of truly tested your limits and why?
It's interesting. I haven't broke it down into stages per se. It's more been which kids, because I have 4, right? So like I've got the spectrum of personalities across those. My first son has been just a gem. He's quite wonderful. I mean, he's done silly things, but he is like super just and super intelligent and listens the first time and reads books and takes care of his brothers and is just like such an all around amazing dude. I don't think I've struggled much with him, other than that at very initial time when he was a baby, when I was trying to let go of my own identity. Like that was the stage for him. That was hard for me. I was letting go of me. My second son is me. My second son is all me. And that reflection is both horrific and rewarding, right? Like you see some of your best traits, like he is just so gifted physically and is just so like naturally kind, but at the same time, just a good friend and all these other things, but also so annoying, like so annoying because he's doing all of the things that are my worst traits, but then like mirrored right back at me. Yeah. So he as a child has been my most difficult when it comes to just personality and continued dealings. But that's been since probably about 5 or 6 onward. So he's going to be 10 now. It's been about 5 years of learning to navigate who he is. My third son, he's so special and amazing, but I struggle to like connect with him all the time because he's so independent. I mean, he's the third son. He's really quirky and funny, and like people just come over and they're like, I don't know what it is, but I love that one. And he's got like a mullet, and because he wanted a mullet, he's like, hey, can I get a mullet? And we're like, sure, dude. So and he just rocks it, and he looks great. And so he's hard. Like, I think my difficulty with him is connecting with him. Like he's kind of his own dude, and I don't want to miss out on who he is, but he's so easily taken care of by himself that he doesn't like need me. So there's never like, Dad, I want you. It's like occasionally like he'll come and sit on my lap, and I'm like, oh my God, this is great. Like Fox is sitting on my lap, this is cool. So I would say my struggles with him are that like, I don't connect with him super well. And then number 4, he's a demon. He's a demon. This is easily the most difficult child we have had, like in terms of just straight out the womb, handing us our butts. And he's our 4th, right? Like has not slept through the night since he was born. He has had periods of time where we would go 2 years, 3 years, where he would wake up and scream at the top of his lungs for about an hour and a half a night, like not just kind of like, like just wanted to take on the world, and has just pushed every boundary, both physically, and he's so strong and he's so smart and he's so persistent, but like he is difficult. So it's funny that we got him as a 4th, right? We're like, yeah, we're experienced parents. We got this. Like we've given up trying to control things, but dear goodness, this one has just pushed us. And so he's 3 now. And I would say they've each offered their challenges in their own different ways. And they were never stages for us. It was more just each kid had their own unique little thing. And I say us, I mean me. I can't speak for my wife.
That's an interesting outlook, because I feel like there's people who do go from like the cycles of, okay, here's the baby, and kind of like, and going to the toddler and so on. There is a focus that I've had in these conversations revolving around those kind of timelines, but that literally is a variable, the personality element that a lot of people don't speak to. So that's interesting. That's an important conversation for probably my next question is like, so I guess in focusing on these different personalities per se, have you kind of been forced to like reinvent yourself as a father, or is it kind of just case by case basis and how you deal with each of the kids that you have to approach it?
Oh yeah. On both fronts. So yes to both of those. I've had to reinvent myself many times, and it's a case to case basis, because I think that's what having 4 children really does teach you. I mean, you probably experienced this with 2 children where like you have one child and you start to feel like you figured it out. You're like, oh, okay, I figured out what works with you. And you have another child and you're like, let me do the thing that worked with the last child. And it's like, well, that doesn't work. And you're like, what just happened? I thought we'd figure this out. Yeah. And then after 2, you kind of let go of that, like, I've got it figured out, which makes 3 and 4 quite joyous. Like you don't think that you've got it figured out. You're kind of paying attention to what's happening and then trying to balance on it. And that's what I would say probably the reason a lot of the people you talk to talk about stages is that they've probably had 1 to 2 kids, and you can clearly monitor the stages. But as you start to have more, you're ignoring whatever stage some are in, and you're just focused on the most acute problem that's happening. So, so it's more individual. I would say yes. I've definitely had to change who I am in terms of how I approach I mean, my professional life, my marital life, my emotional life, like there's been many deaths and rebirths of my own being as a man through all of the different kids. Absolutely. Age wise, career wise, universe wise, all the stuff that was going on in our world since 2020 onward. There's just been a lot. And I think that's not unique necessarily to parenting. I think most human beings have to go through these cycles of change and movement, but it makes it much more complex, I would say, to some degree, because you have to also navigate your relationship with these beings. If you're present and aware. If you're just going to neglect them, that's a different thing. But if you're present and aware, you have to realize how you're showing up for those people. But yeah, I guess I don't know if that answered your question, but
Definitely. Yeah. I always saw the difference between having 2 kids and 4 kids was you're just changing the man-to-man defense to zone defense, and that was it, right? What's the biggest difference in how you've maybe fathered at, I think you said 27 to, I guess, around 40, getting close to 40, right? So what do you think is the biggest difference? I know you talk about the element of maturity, or I think,
yeah.
Which is probably a big one. It was a big one for me too, even how I think for me in the understanding of myself being more mature, that definition has changed.
Yeah. I think the biggest difference is who I am, of course, like how my level of what I find important, what I deem not important, where I'm putting my time, how I'm communicating, all of those things have enhanced tenfold since I was 27 years old. Mm-hmm. The depth of relationship with my wife, the intentionality of every action that I have, like all of those things have increased so much. And I would say that I'm much more happy and satisfied with life in general now. I'm not excelling financially by any means, and there's been so many hurdles and so many more, I'm sure, that are to come. But in terms of who I am as a man, and that I'd say the biggest difference between 27 and I'm coming up on 40 now is just like, I'm good. Like I've got a lot to work on, but I love who I am. I love the relationship I have with my wife, and I've got so many more tools to deal with crap, to deal with all the stuff that life's going to throw at you. Like I've had jobs let go. I've had many businesses fall through. I've had kids get really hurt. I've had sicknesses go down. I've had to, had my father move up, my friend move on my property. I've switched companies, like all these things. And it's like, right now I look at my life and I go, dude, no matter what happens, I'm good. Like I can figure it out. Like I'm very confident in my ability to figure it out. You tell me I have to figure it out. I got it. I got you. We're going to do this. It might be stressful, but I can do it.
And you kind of, I guess, owe that to the tools in the toolbox, I guess, to just going through many sets of circumstances.
Well, I think you can go through a circumstance and not learn. I think by nature, I'm looking at any circumstance I go through and being like, what's happening here? Like, and I don't know if all people do that, but I do know that I do that. I'm always like, what's happening right now? What's going on here? Mm-hmm. And why is it happening? And is there something I'm doing to impact this scenario that I could do better? And I think that process done over and over again gives you the tools, right? It takes your single hammer tool that you have and gets you a screwdriver and then a nail gun and then it gives you a nice table saw and all these other pieces versus just continually walking around with the hammer. And that's honestly how I see a lot of parents deal with things, and it breaks my heart. They're like, they have a hammer and they're like, well, let's use this for every situation. And that's how I kind of view yelling. It's like, it's a tool, but it's one tool. And it's honestly a very aggressive and blunt tool. Like you're not building fine furniture with that. You're framing up a birdhouse that kind of might fall apart, like, so I think that that process of like paying attention to your impact on things and all of the things that you're doing as potential development for new tools, it is that expansion of the toolbox. But that's through experience and time. Nobody can give you that. Nobody can give you the tools. Like, that's the funny thing for me is, like, I put out content on the internet. I'm like, here's what I went through, but that's not going to make you any better. It might might make you aware of the tool so that way you can then go and use it. But in order for you to actually acquire that tool, you got to go use it. Like, you got to take action. The words, it's performative. That's my whole issue with social media in general. Like, it's performative. It's like, you think you're getting better by listening to someone talk about their experience, but you actually have to go have the experience for it, to mean anything. It doesn't discount therapy. It doesn't discount putting stuff out there, but you can't stop there. Like, you can't just hear the thing and be like, I got it. That's like, the term I've heard recently is the wisdom given rather than wisdom earned. Like, you need to earn it, which is that process could be shortened a little, but it's still got to be a process.
100%. I think one, to kind of maybe switch topics here and kind of, I would say, the infrastructure maybe at home, kind of marriage and communication elements, right? Like, I feel like I've had some conversations with some folks who are maybe not married anymore, divorced, maybe come into a relationship. And that's why we kind of call it father figure, because I know some guys who've been put in relationships where they haven't necessarily birthed the children, yet they're stepping into situations where they're now being a father figure, you can say. And, they're teens, they're maybe older than teens, or maybe fresh babies, to be determined. So, I feel like the significant other in this situation is an important indicator of, I guess, the path, the journey, right? So you had mentioned some of your content, your wife is a great communicator. I would say my wife is a great communicator as well, and kind of really sets a high standard for me. So what's one thing that she does naturally that you had to basically learn?
My wife is less emotional than me. So she will not go straight to emotion. She will be very flat, and that is by nature what she is. And I've had to realize that is super effective for having more difficult conversations. And that's something that I've tried to take on board, is like to be flatter during more intense times. It doesn't mean I don't care. It just means try to remove that part of it. And I think that we weren't always great communicators. She is as stubborn as I am. And when we first got together, we would bicker a lot, like lots of like chirping at each other. And it wasn't deep. Like, it wasn't like, but we would fight about everything. Like, we would fight about food and like who has the best coconuts and like, who cares? Like, it was just like, and it would bother people around us, but it would never bother us. It would bother our friends. They'd be like, are you guys okay? And we're like, no, we're madly in love. We like, and nothing about it was real. But then when it became real, like 3-4 years into the relationship, and we have a kid, and we're starting to argue about real stuff, there was no backing down on either side. Both of us were like incessant, I'm doing my thing because it's right. Because nobody argues because they think they're wrong. Like, everyone argues because they think they're right, but what happened was I actually had to go, does this matter? Like, does the thing that I'm like sticking to right now, the fact that I think I said it this way and she thinks I said it this way, does this matter? And there was a time where I remember, like, I've never given in on a fight in my whole life. I love conflict. I love arguing. Like, nothing about it bothers me. But I never given in a fight, and she had never given in a fight either. And I couldn't overrun her, and she's too strong. And I eventually was just like, you know what? I'm super sorry. It doesn't matter. And I'm wrong. And in that moment, she immediately just was like, I'm sorry too. And I'm wrong as well. Like, and I see your side of it and blah, blah, blah. And it was like this immediate backing down rather than the gloating, like, haha, gotcha, sort of deal. And that immediately changed our relationship and our level of communication. Because even when it gets heated now, one of us will eventually get to a point where we're like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like I'm sorry, but you're an idiot. It's like, it's genuinely, this doesn't matter. And because 99% of conversations are like that. So her ability to let go, to like immediately shift into, I'm sorry too, was game changer for our relationship. And my ability to let go has made it so we can communicate. And now to this day, like, we'll still have contentious arguments. We just had one the other day. But then we unpack why it happened, and then we go, okay, well, let's figure out how to make it better.
Can you maybe share a particular moment where that communication like kind of saved you from maybe making a mistake as like a husband or a father?
Yeah, for sure. In terms of prevented me from making a mistake, I'm trying to think of like one that would fit that kind of a narrative versus just what's been going on recently. I'll share like a more contentious conversation that has gone on recently. And actually, you know what? Let's go over what went down yesterday. We have different relationships to gift giving and presents. And Christmas is a time of year where that happens. And in my life, I grew up with not very much money. So come Christmas and come my birthday, those were very special times to me because I got gifted stuff that I wouldn't be able to get all year. I'd get a new skateboard or I'd get a video game or like whatever it was. And I was by no means poor. Like we had food but like there was not extra. Relative to my peers, I was poor, but I also went to a small private school. So it was a different thing. But, so those carry an extra special importance in my heart. And as rational as I want to be about it, I'm sometimes not. And throughout the history of our relationship, there's been a series of times where she has not got great gifts, neither meaningful nor expensive. Like one of my Christmases, and she would hate that I would bring this up, but at the same time, we're far past this. She got me a blanket. And that's a really meaningful gift because she saw me every day working on the couch cold, and so she got me this soft special blanket. But that was like her Christmas gift to me, and I thought that was ridiculous. And like just let her have it for a while, right? Like this is absolutely insane that you would get me this as a Christmas gift. And she thought she was being so great. And so there's been this routine of like a not paying off of gifts to the point where last year I was like, hey, I'm just going to buy myself a nice gift, and then I'll send you something that you can get, and then you can get me a nice gift for Christmas. Because the other problem is in our life, we've got an October birthday or September birthday, a September, a November, a December, and a January for all four of our kids. So we've got all of these birthdays back to back, and I'm in January 5th, and we've got Christmas in between those. And it's the end of the year, and it's like money is just going. So we never have money come my birthday, which is January 5th. So every year on my birthday, I feel like I'm always like stressed about money. She's always stressed about money. And we're like, you know what, let's just do something mellow. Like, well, it's okay. And I'm always hoping that she'll like not do that and like do something special, but she always does, just like the generic thing. But last year she went kind of big, and she's like, hey, I booked you a tattoo with this local artist who's amazing. And that was really cool. And I was like, amazing. Anyway, lead into yesterday, we were having a conversation about what we wanted to do for Christmas this year, and we were expressing our different feelings about it. And there is a part of this that her birthday is January, February, March, April, May. She's in May. I always have to figure out which second M month. She's May 17th. And by that time, our finances are usually doing okay. And she's not like a greedy person by any means, but for some reason, she always does really expensive things on our birthday. like, and she wouldn't say this, but the truth is, like, I get her some nice gifts, and then we'll usually go out for like a really nice day. Like, we'll drive up to the city and we'll spend like $500 on food and like all these other things. And I'm like, this is a lot and way more than we ever do for my birthday. But it's okay to me because I understand that birthdays are special. So I have this weird relationship around that where I've got a weird stigma around it. She's got a weird stigma. And so just yesterday we were having this. So what do you want to do for the birthday? And I'm like, look, I just feel like we never choose good things around this. And she's like, what do you, and she immediately got a little defensive because she felt like she did really good last year. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, but no, like, I mean, every time come your birthday, you still do the big expensive. And she's like, we never do expense. And so we get into this fight about like differences of opinion on these pieces. And that exact thing happened where eventually I was like, I don't care. Like, I really don't care. And I want to not care. And I actually don't, like, logically, I don't care. And actually emotionally, like, we did great this last year. I don't care. And she's like, and I hear that. And like, she let go of it. And like, in that moment, it was like this coming back down of like, and then I'm like, and I'm sorry for even bringing up your birthday. I shouldn't have gone there. Like, it just was the thing that I was trying to compare to. And I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it. And just that, immediate in the moment, like, we have this 15-minute heated argument, and the kids are around and they see it, and then it's like, but it's okay, and then we hug, and it's all good. But like, I guess that's the most recent scenario. Is it's just that ability to be deep in it, have a lot of emotions, years of conversations, years of feelings, but then recognize that it doesn't matter, even though it is important, but it's not. Like, let's work on the mechanics of it and where we're currently at and what we can actually do to make it feel great for both people. And and when we remove the emotion out of it, and we remove the comparison game and the you get this and the blah, 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 it's like, let's just talk about the mechanics of what we have now. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I need to grow as a man to like, never cling on to this. Like, I can tell you the story about her birthday and she uses more money, but it's like, it doesn't matter. I genuinely, I'm not just saying I don't care. I don't care. I don't care, and I won't care. And come May, I won't care either. But let's figure out what we can do to work on it now. And yeah, that's I guess how we've recently used it.
Yeah, and like I did some training with Tony Robbins and Chloe Mandanis in kind of the coaching space, and one of the things they kind of talk about is these levels of relationships. Level one relationship is where people basically expect the world, right? They will basically expect something and not necessarily give anything. And level two is somebody who will give something but basically expect something back, right? And level three is basically giving without expecting anything back. And it said that people who live on that kind of level three relationship have some of the, I guess, happiest times, happiest moments, because they're not necessarily expecting anything. And I can tell you, I'm sometimes back and forth between 1, 2, and 3, depending on the time of day or time of year. But we do find, like, kind of what you're mentioning is that it doesn't necessarily matter. You get to this point where it is kind of a not expecting anything back, and the kind of happiness just kind of naturally flows. Yeah. I mean, to speak to, I'll give you another phrasing for that recently came to fruition in my life. It's essentially a devotion to something outside the relationship. So you've got codependence, right? Where you're dependent upon the other person. You've got interdependence where you're like, you're good. You don't need the other person or anything that they've got. But then you've got devotion, and devotion is not necessarily to the other person. It's to the relationship. So it's not like I'm necessarily just serving you. I'm serving you because this is the best for our relationship. So you almost make the relationship a third party that you're both committed and devoted to. You're devoted to this, like, okay, how can I best serve you? And that to me would be that third level, right? It's like you're both in a place where you're seeing eye to eye on being devoted to the other person, but not just the other person, but to the relationship. What's the best for the relationship? Because then there's a take there that can happen on your part of like, what's best for the relationship is I need
to take a little right now, or I need to give a little right now. And it's just these really committed things. It was in the context of actually monogamy. I in a chat with AI, I was sitting there going, just having a thought, and I was like, does monogamy create a sexual codependence? Does it create an intimacy codependence? Because you are by definition dependent upon the other person for the thing. And I'm like, I wonder what a computer will think to this. So I was like, does monogamy create codependence? And it spit back this thing. It's like, it can, but not if you phrase it correctly and not if you think about it correctly. And it unpacked that for me about like codependence, interdependence, and devotion, and how looking to both serve the third party of the relationship and devote yourselves to that can mean that you do what's necessary within intimacy and love and connection that exist outside a servicing of the other person or servicing of yourself. And it's no longer about that. It's about what's best for the relationship. And that whole concept was like, oh, that's fascinating. Like, because then it almost takes the weight off your partner's shoulders and your shoulders, because you're going, well, what's best for our relationship? And in a real sense, be like, not just like, not just like what I feel like right now and what got to get my rocks off. It's more like what's best for the relationship and how can we both do our very best to make that happen. And it actually opened up a really interesting conversation with my wife where like I had to say, hey, honey, if we agree to this and like, let's be devoted to each other in this way, you have to be open to the idea that 5 times a week is potentially the best thing for our relationship. And then she like started to get heated. I'm like, but I have to be open to the idea, but like genuinely open to it, that once every 2 weeks is the best for our relationship. And not like in rigid structure of like, this is the amount, but like if we're feeling and playing off of each other, like what's the best for our relationship, and giving both of us the permission to be like, yeah, I'm open to one of those things being the truth. It's made connection really interesting for like a couple months now. And just having that off of her shoulders is like, oh, I need to service this for the relationship. And me being like, I need this for my need. And it's like, dude, get over yourself. It's been fascinating.
Interesting. I've heard some people say, like, in a bit of a different context in relation to their kids, but if you put your family first in your decisions, you'll never make a bad decision. So it's almost like that similar approach. So let's maybe kind of switch gears here a little bit. I mean,
before you move on from that point, just like yes, but people have to recognize they're part of their own family.
Yes.
And I think where some men do a disservice to themselves is they put everyone first, but don't take care of their basic needs. So like getting your needs of like food, water, shelter, meaning met, those are very important so that you can take care of other people. That's never going to not be me. I'm a very selfish man. I've had to learn to not be selfish, but I know a lot of men who will break themselves attempting to outservice their partner. And just contextually, I hope men pay attention to that.
100%. That's actually a big focus in our program, is like literally have to understand and plan to put yourself first in certain circumstances, whether it's waking up early or some people are doing their thing late. It's just having your time to shine, I think, is super important for you to function properly, or, to put other people in your life, right? When you're making decisions for other people. So let's kind of maybe talk about, there's a sense of kind of pressure with kind of what you just mentioned, right? Like kind of fatherhood pressure, and sometimes a struggle in kind of identity, even kind of masculinity. So like, what does healthy masculinity mean to you? Obviously having four boys. And I mean, I'm not sure, maybe that's changed compared to say almost 10 years ago, but what does healthy masculinity really look like to you?
It's an interesting big subject. And I think healthy masculinity to me is strength, adaptability. I think it's a sense of control, but not of the world, more so of yourself. And the ability to serve those around you to the most effect. So kind of all the stuff we've been talking about is like, are you strong enough to take care of your family. And I mean that in a very literal sense, but also in an emotional sense. Like, can you take the weight of fatherhood? There's parts of it that are like, I need to get 5 jobs right now and come home and wrestle with my children. Like, that's hard. While the world's also simultaneously often telling you you're kind of garbage, so there's a strength that's required in that. And I think that is important to have on a physiological level as well as an emotional level. And the physiological side of it is you do need to take care of your health. Like, like healthy masculinity is prioritizing your health. And that doesn't mean doing weird body cleanses and doing extreme like events and all this stuff. It could mean those things, but for most people, it's just like, are you being active and moving your body? Are you making a stab at eating well and not over drinking? And are you trying to sleep to the best of your ability? Like, those 3 things, like, do them. Can you do all the saunas and the cold plunges and the blah, blah, blah? I'm like, sure, but let's not miss the forest for the trees here. Let's do the big important things, make sure those are consistent, and then we can okay, we can move forward and get extreme if we really want to and get tinker with it and sleep in our 8 sleep mattress and optimize and blah, blah, blah. But then there's the emotional strength side of it, which is basically having this ability to not feel the spectrum of emotion. Like, can you feel hurt, sadness, pain, anxiety, depression, happiness, joy, like all of the things, not just anger and okay. Like I think there's so many of us men that are emotionally closed off in a way where we don't have a subtlety with our emotions. We've got a hammer and we're like going at the world and we're like, here we go. I think anger is super important to be able to call upon. I think frustration and sadness and joy and happy, these are all things that we should be able to access. So I think healthy masculinity embodies that as well. Is like, I'm not neglecting the spectrum of emotion, but I'm also not an emotional wreck. I don't just walk around a sobbing mess who can't get stuff done. Like, you can't do that. You got to have the strength of arm and the strength of mind to be able to control the emotions, to express the appropriate emotions for the times that you're having in your life. Because goodness gracious, if you can't express that spectrum of emotion and you're having emotional, meaningful things happening to your children, like, you're letting them down and you're letting yourself down, because you could feel these. You could really be there and feel them and show that and emote and like connect on a very different level. Anyway, so I think control, strength, very important to me. There's a resiliency that's required, almost a mindset of like, I can, like, do you know the word anti-fragility?
Not one that comes up very often.
So anti-fragility is just in essence, most biological organisms are anti-fragile. Like, it's the human body is by nature anti-fragile. It's different than resilient because when you stress it, it doesn't actually come back to the same place. Like, resilience is like you stress something and it doesn't break. Whereas anti-fragility is you stress something and then it adapts. So it actually gets better, and it's better from the stress that it was under. And that's what training is. That's what physical training is like you're stressing the organism. So, and then you give it time to rest and it becomes better because of that training. It puts on muscle, or it has a better lung capacity, or there's a better oxygen exchange, whatever it is. But psychologically, we can have the same processes happen where we stress the system and then we recover and we are better than we previously were. It's why you and I can probably handle a work volume that is obscene for the 20-year-old version of us, or like the things we can do to conceptualize emotion are very different than when we were younger, because we've had this constant stress, rest over our lives to cope. And I think healthy masculinity is recognizing that this is the process, and are we stressing ourselves correctly, and are we recovering correctly? And what is that balance happening with you? Like, are you not allowing yourself to recover? Because if you're not allowing yourself to recover, or you've not found those levers to pull, you're never going to improve. But you have to improve if you want to be the strong, like, capable, resilient man. So I think understanding that mindset of anti-fragility is huge for healthy masculinity. And then like understanding that we have to keep growing, and it's not always going to be in one lane. Like that whole term, like if you're not growing, you're dying sort of deal. I believe that, but I think people use it too one dimensionally. They're like, if your business isn't making more money, you're dying. And it's like, dude, no. That's like one avenue. You could be learning something new. You could be learning to control your emotions. You could be getting physically stronger. You could be getting faster. You could be learning to sleep better. Like, you need to be growing and changing and bending. You could be learning to appreciate the little things better. You could be working on gratitude. You could be working on a better beard. I don't care what it is. Like, you do have to be wanting to grow and change and be the best version of yourselves. And then I think lastly, I think for healthy masculinity, there is honesty and acceptance of your own role. Like, honesty is a pillar for me above all else. Like, until you're honest with yourself and the world, you can't move forward. You can't be a good man until you're honest. You can be a kind of good man, but then you're going to make some questionable decisions if you're still lying to yourself or lying to the people around you. And then taking responsibility for what's going on is just like owning the life that you have. There's like feeling like you've got an internal locus of control and you're in charge of what's going on versus, oh, the world's happening to me. I think those things for me are healthy masculinity.
I'd even maybe add another layer onto that, which I feel is an interesting topic of conversation, is empathy, is kind of leading a lot of relationships and conversations with empathy, opposed to maybe the more generational, traditional level of masculinity. I feel like you can accomplish a lot with some old-fashioned empathy.
And I think that if you want to phrase that for a lot of men to hear, curiosity is the thing that you're going for, right? So when you're in a conversation, being genuinely curious about the other side allows you to feel empathetic for it. I think too often people use empathy as kind of a bludgeon. It's like, feel sorry with me. And it's like, no, I'm not going to feel sorry with you. You know, like you don't need to be soft in that way, but you do need to be curious. And you do need to be like, well, why or wow, like can you put yourself in those shoes? You probably couldn't, because you wouldn't make those decisions, because that's who you are as a man. But what if you did? What would that be like? Wow, can you maybe see that side and not try to solve everything, but be curious about what they're going through and just listen? Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you, and it's something it's hard. I definitely had, I mean, as coaches, we get it, right? Like you have to connect with an individual for actually move the needle for anyone. But yeah, I think empathy is a great one.
So what's kind of maybe a fatherhood fear that you have? Is there anything? Is there multiple levels of fear? And there's a lot of conversations I've had about the fear of the world we live in today, which is obviously...
I don't have that fear. You want to grab hold of something that's way outside your control. Try to control the world. Good call with that one.
Right.
Like, dude, that blows my mind. Like, people who are really bought into like global politics and all that stuff, and they spend their hours and days stressing about all these things. It's like, I will not devote my time to that. Anyway, that's a different subject. A fear. I fear not earning enough money to make it so my family can live the way they want to live. Mainly my wife. I work like 5 jobs and I'm grinding constantly, and I've got so many balls in the air, and I'm like not trying to be arrogant, but I'm really good at what I do, but I haven't found the thing yet that has just made me the money to make me the man that. And I don't need much, not even much more than I currently have. But like, I mean, we've got a beautiful house in the mountains of Santa Cruz. I got 5 acres in the mountains here with a spring and a well and rentals. My dad lives on my property. My best friend lives here. I've got an Airbnb. Like, I've got all these things. I've got, I've got over $1 million of equity in my house, and like, I've got a lot, but I don't have enough freedom to be able to be like, hey, honey, do you want to travel to New Zealand next week? Let's go to New Zealand, you know? So there's uncertainty there, and I fear that, but in a good way, because I'm very inspired to to make a difference and to actually do something. So that's a very real fear for me, because I look at costs of living and I'm in California, man. It's like, this is crazy. This is crazy. I'm making so much money and it's so hard to live, and I don't live extravagantly. I don't at all. But having 4 kids and being here and wanting to eat meat is expensive. So I think that's a big one. I fear that I'll work so hard in that attempt that I'll miss out on moments with my boys. Like, I know I said that I probably won't be the guy in the deathbed saying I didn't do this, but I do fear that. Because I'm getting older. My oldest is turning 13 or turning, he's 13 now. And, I just think that this time goes so fast.
Yeah.
And I know I'm doing a good job and I know they're great kids, but I want more. Like, I want more connection with them, even though I have great connection with them. So I guess that's a fear, but one that inspires me again to be more intentional with the time that I do have. I think I'd say those are my 2 big ones.
I think it's very natural to want more, but I think the intentional aspect of that is the important one, right? I think to constantly be wanting more, but not putting that into, which another question I'll have following up here is maybe like the structure or the actual mindfulness to be present for some of these things. And I think that's natural. So let's maybe talk about kind of some systems. I'm a big kind of systems guy, and I think that's something you can potentially pass on or replicate. Like, what's one system at home that keeps you sane, keeps you grounded, keeps you structured?
You have to journal. Like, I'm not gonna say it like you can do it if you want anymore. Like, you have to, like, you have to write, and it doesn't need to be meaningful. It doesn't even need to be like, I did this last week. You just have to have an idea. If you have an idea and you put it on paper and then you flush it out a little bit more, like, that process is essential to growing. And what you'll find is that you write down some weird stuff, and you might even write down the same thing like 500 times.
Yeah.
But it's the greatest tool and ritual that I have. And I for the last about 8 months have been waking up about 4:30. I have a good daily ritual. Again, I've got a great life here, like I've said before, but I wake up at 4:30. I go start the coffee pot. I go walk like out in the freezing cold up to my pool area, turn on my sauna, wait for it to get warm a little bit, walk back down to the house, drink my coffee, and write for like 40 minutes. My wife wakes up. We start a fire. We drink 2 cups of coffee. Usually our demon child wakes up right around 5-ish, comes out sometimes screaming, sometimes not. But that writing, that little bit of like, I'm capturing what's this lightning that's going on in the mornings and the ideas that I have. There's some times where it's like the most meaningful thing I can do is just sit and write. And there's other times where it's just like bleep, blop, bloop, like just like poop that I'm writing out there. Yeah. And there'll be days that I go where I don't, but like going back and looking at these to see how far I've come, and having these honest conversations with myself. And that's what I realized journaling is like, it's talking to yourself. Like, it's the socially accepted form of talking to yourself. Mm-hmm. Many of us have lots of thoughts going on in our head, but we don't say them, let alone say them to ourselves and expect ourselves to respond. We just think that by thinking them, we're processing it. It's like, nope, you gotta say it or you gotta write it down. So if you really want to, you can sit and talk to yourself, but I think most people should just be writing.
I used to like try to journal and read at night, but when I changed it to the morning first thing, it was a game changer for me.
Yeah. I'm so tired at night. I'm so just over the day. I'm just like, I'm done. Yeah. How was my day? I'm grateful for that. I'm breathing. This is good.
Passing out the book open. Yeah. So, totally. So I guess in relation to boundaries, this is a big conversation. I know it's hard to maybe encapsulate into maybe 1 or 2 questions, but like, Where did you have to set boundaries maybe with yourself? Like not your kids or your work, but what, like with yourself?
I always have to set boundaries. I think we're in a day and age of comfort and hedonism. And I think hedonistic pleasure, just pleasure for pleasure's sake, is easier to come by than it ever has been. I think if you don't recognize that certain dives into areas are more detrimental than they are beneficial, then you will not come close to recognizing your potential as a man. So everything from the food that you eat, to the training that you do, to the content you consume, to the relationship to your phone, to, the examination of pornography, like whatever it is, there has to be boundaries in place, because everything is so accessible that you could literally just be a sloth playing video games all day, every day, and waste your life away. And I'm not saying that video games are inherently wrong or evil, but like they are the epitome of false action. Like we talked about it earlier, of this, like, I'm watching stuff, so I'm getting better. Video games are the epitome of false action. Like you think you're doing something awesome and everything you're doing is completely meaningless. Like completely meaningless. And it's playing on every little thing in your little boy heart that's like, I'm slaying monsters, like literally, and it's like, no, you're not. You're doing nothing. You're sitting around becoming a turd, and so I think boundaries and learning how to set those with yourselves are absolutely essential. And I think that it's not a one size fits all. It's not like, and now you have discipline. It's like you examine your life and you go, where am I good at setting boundaries? Where am I not good at setting boundaries? Where do I need more boundaries? Where do I need less? Where do I need to pull the reins in, and how can I do that? And where can I let it be a little freer? And we have stages of life that we go through. Like, I'm not the workout guy who's like, I'm so addicted to it, it's great. Like, I've spent years doing like one workout a week, and from years of doing 3 workouts a day, like, because that was for training for competition. Now I'm a dad and I don't really care as much. Boundaries around food. Like, there's seasons where I'm like, I don't care. And then there's other seasons where I'm like, I'm going to weigh and measure everything that I have. And then in between seasons where I'm like, well, let's challenge myself here, and let's do a loose version of this. Boundaries around intimacy and sex and pornography and masturbation and everything in between. Like, these are all relationships that, because the ease of access is so prevalent in our day and age, we have to set boundaries. So you have to come up with, like, who's the man I want to be? What does that man do? What does that look like? What small action can I take now to start moving towards that man? I can't do it all. Like, I can't. Like, sometimes I'm like, I'm doing no alcohol, and it's like, I'm probably going to eat some more sugar right now, Other times it's like, I'm going to do no sugar, and I'm like, I'm going to have another drink, and then other times it's like, I'm going to do no sugar, no alcohol. I got this. I'm feeling good. Life's in a place where I can really lock that in. So recognizing that there's always a push and pull when it comes to boundaries, but recognizing that it's important to always be examining those and always be just taking another step is huge. And that's what I think writing down has really helped me, because it allows me to set a boundary, say, I want this, here's what I'm going to do it, and then examine that again 6 weeks from now and see how I'm doing. And then maybe I write the same thing, or maybe I slightly modify what it is. And here's why I'm modifying it, whatever it is. Like, to the point where I actually have just made an app that does exactly that. It's called Buddy, Buddy, and it's essentially that you set a goal for yourself, and you why you want that goal. Then you say that's the action you're going to take in order to do it, and when do you want to be reminded? Did you do your thing? And then it weekly or daily, whatever you set, says, did you do the thing? And if you say yes, it says, good job, we'll see you tomorrow. If you say no, it says, why not? And then you have a quick little AI conversation, and then it says, here's a version of it that you can do better next time. Good luck. And then it gives you a thing, and a little slap on the ass, and you just keep doing it. And so I've made that for myself. It's going to be launching on the 1st, and it's going to be great. But I think that those boundaries are very important to set with yourself.
You also kind of bring up a good conversation about accountability, like the personal accountability, right? That is such a character trait that seems to be lacking. Like I'm trying to instill this in my kids. Like accountability first and foremost over anything else is so important. So it always seems to come back in a conversation that I have. So
Yeah.
that seems like what Buddy is based on, right?
It is. It's based on a little bit of, I mean, that's what coaches are essentially, right?
Oh.
Like all of the information is free. And that's one of the reasons, like being in the CrossFit space, you see what works. Part of the reason that CrossFit works is the program that it is. The other part is the fact that you're in a gym with a bunch of people doing a bunch of hard stuff together. And there's a guy who really cares about you that you've paid to make you get better. So you're like, there's a lot of hooks here that that hold me accountable to showing up. Access isn't the issue when it comes to fitness. It's doing it, you know, and that's that accountability that you're speaking to. So how can we get more people to stay accountable? And journaling and talking to yourself, that's honestly how you hold yourself accountable. It's something that I've learned, which is why I'm trying to like, okay, maybe I can make other people actually take action and do something different. I've thought about all different ways of keeping people accountable. I had one self bet where you could bet yourself money that you would do it. And if you didn't do it, you would lose your money. And so it was like an honesty thing first and foremost, but you just put your like, hey, here's $100. I put it in my thing and I'm holding myself accountable through this $100. Like I've thought of all different ways, like negative enforcement. Cause I always want to change and you so slowly do, but I want more people to own it. And it sounds like you get it too, but
yeah, no, it is a missing character trait in a lot of lives. I'm not gonna lie, it's
I know
quite a bit. So there's kind of this term that we've coined called the father mark, and essentially it's like legacy, right? It's like it's a mark you kind of leave on your children, whether it's positive or negative. I mean, we've had father marks that have been left on us from basically our fathers and parents and such, right? So if this is kind of relating back to, I guess, each of your sons, you know, what would they say about you as a man when they become a dad themselves?
Ugh.
Could be a one-liner. I know it's been hard for some people.
Sure.
Or one word even.
I think my first son would say that I was fair and just. I think and then as he gets older, I think he'll realize that I care a lot. I think he knows that now, but I don't think it's hard. He can't really get that perspective now. I think my second son, legacy wise, he would say probably my dad was really good at games. He'd be like, dad was always super fun and was really good at sport and games. And then I think my third son, legacy wise, would probably say I make good popcorn. He's into food and I make pretty good popcorn in the pan there. And then my fourth son, what would he say? That's a great question for him. He's such a unique bugger. I don't know. I don't know what he would say. I think he's so interesting in terms of how I love him. Because I love him so much, but he's so intense that he's definitely seen sides of me where I'm like, dude, what the hell? I think he would say that I really love his mom. Because he sees us being very affectionate to each other. Not intimacy. I'm just talking about like we are constantly hugging each other and kissing, and he's always there, like clinging on to her. So I think the legacy that he would see is how deeply I loved his mother, and how well we work together.
That's an important one.
Yeah, I think so.
So, I mean, with 4 boys, your legacy is essentially like multiplied. So in relation to that father mark, like what do you kind of hope each of them really carry into fatherhood, into adulthood, this like trait wise?
Yeah, strength and kindness and honesty. I think a balance of being able to speak truth to power and say your piece and have it be heard, but not need to dominate, while simultaneously wanting to like uplift people who are struggling. And then being honest with the world and knowing that honesty as a trait is very important, just for them to move through the world with. There's as corny as it is, there's a great anime that has a character in it named Rengoku, and he dies very tragically in it. And he's got this line where he's like talking to his mom, this memory of his mother, because his mother passed away. And it's him as a kid talking to his mom as he's dying. So he's currently dying and he's having these flashbacks of his childhood. And his mom is talking to him from like her like sick bed. And she's like, Rengoku, do you know why you were born strong? And he's like, no. And his mom's like, so you can protect those who weren't. And that's your gift, is you can be there for those that don't have it. And it's just like, it's so heavy hitting as this guy is literally sacrificing his life and everything that he's done. And it's like, that's the power that men have, that most men have, is this ability to be like, you can protect those who can't on some level. And you don't need to be a martyr about it, but you do need to do it. And that sense of justice within that, I want my kids to carry on, is like, they were given a lot in terms of the quality of woman their mother is, the quality of upbringing they're going to have and they're having. And I'm not holding this over their head, but it's going to give them a position of power as a human being, of strength and kindness, in a way where they don't need to be something over the top and ridiculous and some big businessman dominating the world and blah, blah, blah. They can just be good to the people that are around them. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want them carrying into fatherhood and the world, is just like, I don't care if they work at Safeway, but like when people meet them, they'll be like, dude, that's a good man. And I know they will. I mean, they're already that way. Like you could meet my kids now. You could meet my 3-year-old and be like, that's a pretty good kid. You know, like they're just good kids. And I'm so lucky for that. It's not by any means something I've contributed, but not so much in my like rearing of them, just the situation that I find myself in.
Mm. So last couple questions here. I mean, I kind of ask this to each person I interview because I think it's an important takeaway. And what would you say to a father or man who feels like he's failing?
I mean, first I'd say we all are. I think there's a reality to that. Like, that doesn't take away the pain. That doesn't take away the fact that it hurts and all of the things are happening. But like, yeah, we all are. We all are failing. And we just now need to figure out, okay, what's the next step I can take? No matter how small, what's the next step? Like you can't give up. That's the one that we can't do. To take it another nerdy book, there's a great fantasy series, and there's this guy who has, he's a king essentially, and he said this line throughout this book, which is, what's the most important step a man can take? And people say the first one, and blah, blah, blah. And he has this epiphany as he's being like strangled by a god, where it's like, what's the most important step a man can take? And he realizes it's not the first one, it's the next one, because he's accepting his responsibility in this pain. And he's saying, you can't have my pain, to this God who's saying like, give it to me, it's all good. And he's like, you can't have it, it's mine, because if you take this pain, then I didn't experience this. It wasn't me, and I can't grow from this. And then he realizes the most important step a man can take is the next one. And I'm like, that to me is the thing. Like, you're failing. Yeah, you probably are. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear, but we all are, and we all deal with this. And I'm laughing as I say it, because that's how I cope with extreme stress, is I laugh. But the things are, okay, let's re-examine now. Let's figure out what you can do to take care of your basic needs. Where does that start? What's your physical health look like? What's your mental health look like? What's your spiritual health look like? What's your level of meaning look like with the things that you're doing? And what's maybe one of these glaring areas that you can maybe grab some control over? Maybe you have to go to a job that you hate. Maybe you have to come home to a relationship that's not very good. Maybe you have to do these things. What's one little thing that you can take control over that will start moving you forward in the direction that you want to go? Maybe it's going to bed a little bit earlier and not logging on your phone. Maybe it's waking up a little bit earlier and having an hour of peace to yourself. Maybe it's eating a little bit better and not being gluttonous around that. Maybe it's stopping some sort of a compulsion you have towards alcohol, or something else that's damaging to you. But I think, yes, we're all failing. I feel you. You're not alone. But what's one thing you can take control over when it comes to physical, mental, emotional, and meaning-wise health, that you can start working towards that direction, and then own that, and then keep growing from there.
Mm-hmm. Last question. What's the one truth about fatherhood you wish every dad knew?
It's short, man. It's so short. This is so cliche. I mean, that line, the days are long and the years are short, like that got given me as a postcard with my first kid. And I don't know if you can recognize this until you live it. Like, it's just, you blink and it's over and you're like, what the heck? Mm-hmm. I think you just need to recognize that, like, anything you can do to make the presence that you have in any room that you're in a little bit more, putting the phone down, looking at the wife, paying attention to the kid, saying yes to, I'll go play badminton with you again. Like, those little things, like if you can be more present, because it's short.
Pat, some very wise words, I would say, here today. Threw some heavy questions at you, but you took it in stride, and coming from some experience, it shows. And again, I just want to appreciate you for taking this time, because I really did appreciate we tried to get through all the questions. We tried to. There was maybe a couple we didn't go through. We tried. He said it would be difficult at first, which I did believe him. So again, let's take maybe a minute here to do a little plug for your channel or channels, and sure, before we let you go.
Sure. You can check me out on thefathersguild.com. I have retreats at my house where I do fathers retreats. I'll do 3 this next year in summer. It's only like 8 people per retreat, off grid, all inclusive, pretty damn amazing. My wife cooks all the food. I take you through all the stuff. It's sauna cold plunges every morning. It's amazing. So you can check that out at thefathersguild.com. You can find me on Instagram at The Fathers Guild, YouTube, The Fathers Guild. And then if you're hearing this and it's past January 1st, I will have launched Buddy, which the little accountability tool. And the website for that is bde.coach. So bde.coach. And if you know what BDE stands for, you'll kind of understand the joy and joke that I enjoy with that.
All right. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.